I'm Alejandro Zuniga. That's Sam Webb. You can see we are at a slightly rainy, slightly damp Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. What I was saying, and we can appreciate it for a second time, is that this feels like an annual tradition, Sam.
It does.
It is 3 years in a row. It felt like yesterday you could just put your car in autopilot because Michigan has made it to the Big Ten championship game now 3 years in a row. Each one is special in its own way, right? And after beating Ohio State, it is always a fast turnaround, a bit of an emotional hangover for what might not necessarily be such a top-ranked foe.
Yeah, listen, discipline. Say what you will about Kirk Ferentz and all the criticism that he gets, and I think it's warranted. I mean, I think there should be a standard offensively that you play to, regardless of what any phase of what you do. There should be you're trying to be better. And I just get the sense watching Iowa that it wasn't about being better. It was about making sure my son had a job. I don't know that. That's just how it seemed. Now, he could get away with it, though, for two reasons. First, they're in the West, and the West sucks. So that's first and foremost. The second thing is they are really good in the other phases of the game, like really good. Phil Parker, if it weren't for Sharon Moore and his Herculean coaching effort this year, I think Phil Parker will be the Broyles Award winner, hands down. I just think he's tremendous. You look at the talent they recruit versus the talent compared to the talent that's drafted, and clearly they develop guys. Clearly they have guys who are coached up at a high level. You think about Jack Campbell, of course, who we know as Lions fans. Tremendous player. I think their corners the last couple of years, Riley Moss was outstanding. Cooper DeJean is outstanding. Buddha from Detroit, outstanding. Right? They have some dudes that they have developed over the years that have been big-time ball players on the defensive side. Offensively, it's just tight ends. It's only tight ends. Now, they're all-time tight ends, but that's really it. They can get away with it because on defense, they turn you over. They make you be disciplined in your approach. You have to be able to be methodical and take your shots when they're there. A lot of people think with their scheme that you can't get deep on them. That's not true. This is a game where I think is one of the keys, and I'm going to talk about it on CBS tomorrow, play action. Play action is a big deal in this game. Now, they put a lot of pressure on their safeties to really trigger and run support. That is a recipe for play action Alejandro Zuniga. Because those guys, as much as they have a nose for a run, people think the quarters defense is a pass coverage. That is a run defense all the way. And depending on how some of these guys play and the way they play it, those safeties are triggering hard on run action. This is a game where Sharon Moore, if he doesn't have 6 or 7 play action passes on the menu, I would be surprised if that were the case. So I think Michigan's going to have some opportunities down the field. They're going to have to run the football to keep them honest and make them trigger on the run like that. But if they do that and they hit them with some play action, there are going to be some opportunities, especially when Cooper DeJean is out there. One of the keys to kind of look for, you run a receiver at that safety, you can wind up with a lot of one-on-one matchups on the corner. And that's what, if I'm Michigan, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get one-on-one with Cooper DeJean's backup. That's an opportunity for Michigan in this game. If they just do the things that we know they can do, I just have a hard time being scared of Iowa. You're more scared of yourself. You're more scared of the mistakes that you make. You're more scared of complacency. If Michigan isn't complacent, if they play mistake-free football like we've seen them play, I just don't see how Iowa stays within a couple of touchdowns of them.
Hey, you mentioned Cooper DeJean, and if there's kind of a story of the season for the Iowa Hawkeyes, when it's not the offense, it's the injuries, right? No Cooper DeJean, no Eric All, no Cade McNamara, no Luke Lachey. It feels like half of Iowa's team is on the DL for this game, which makes it even more remarkable, right, that they have made the Big Ten championship game, that they have won 10 games, that they're 10-2. It says a lot about what you can accomplish in the Big Ten West and what a program of that caliber can accomplish given their consistency every year. Of course, Cade and Eric, they're not going to be on the field, but that is one of the big storylines for tomorrow.
Yeah, it is.
Captains, man. And what's that going to be like?
Yeah. So I think that look, at the end of the day, those guys were Wolverines for a long time. And I think it will be a reunion of sorts after the game for some members of the team. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you I feel like we're robbed of a major storyline in this game. I really, really do. We'll talk about Tony Petitti. At least we get that.
Hey,
we get that storyline.
That's a reunion.
But we don't get the KJJ storyline. And it's the kind of thing that these Big Ten network shows that they do, it's the kind of thing that those shows are made of, because this was very much a Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers type of deal, except it wasn't Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, you had those two guys are comparable talents. Cade McNamara and JJ McCarthy are not comparable talents. And so that was part of, I think, the issue. Like, you have a guy coming in who's far more talented than the incumbent, who has won a Big Ten championship. And that incumbent doesn't understand, why is there even a competition when I just won a Big Ten championship? But if you're Jim Harbaugh, and I think not enough credit, not enough conversation is given to what an outstanding job Jim Harbaugh did of managing that situation. It was one of his best coaching jobs of his Michigan career. I'll just focus on Michigan, because here's what you can't do, Alejandro, with a Big Ten championship quarterback. You can't say, this guy's more talented, I have a better chance of winning a championship with him. He's the quarterback. You can't do it. You can lose a team that way. A lot of guys, he was one of the team leaders, a captain, as you pointed out. You can't just sit a guy like that down. And you can't have him win the job in practice either, because they've been to water with that guy. They've seen how he is under fire. If the other guy, if the backup is going to win the job, he's got to win it in games. So when Jim said, listen, I'm going to make this be one guy starts one game, one guy starts the other game, we're going to do it in games. When he announced that, Cade had been out playing JJ in practice. Anyone you talk to would tell you that. After that, JJ started winning the practice battles, right?
Funny how that works, Sam.
Right. And so, but it kind of gets to the point. You can't award the job in practice. So you get in games and, man, JJ takes off in the game, and Cade doesn't. And at that point, now it's an elementary decision to the coaches and then to the team, because he can go to the team and say, listen, guys, one guy performed better than the other. That's how we determine in games. That's how we determine the winner. And that's why it was never an issue for the team. And so I can't say enough. Jim Harbaugh, the coaching moves that he's made, from the staffing hires to how he's handled some of the positions, and that being the most important one, because Michigan as a national championship contender, I think, is more viable, maybe only viable, with JJ McCarthy as the quarterback. When you get to this level, and it's what's the difference? Is it you scheming up, Sharon coming up with 7-8 plays where guys are running wide open, or is it Cam Newton, Joe Burrow, who's some other guys that we've seen in recent memory, just kind of Stetson Bennett even. Yep. Stetson Bennett even was a guy, Jameis Winston. When it came to winning a championship, those guys were the difference. You need a player like that, to me, in championship scenarios, that can be the difference. And they arrived at that with JJ McCarthy.
I want to talk about someone who's going to be a difference tomorrow. It's going to be Jim Harbaugh back on the sidelines. Feels like, well, it has been half this season. Jim Harbaugh has not been on the sidelines for the Michigan football team. He is back tomorrow. And one of the most interesting storylines, if not the most interesting storyline of Saturday night here in Indianapolis, is what a potential, if things play out the way we expect, what a potential trophy ceremony would look like with Tony Petitti, Jim Harbaugh, one stage. That is not a big stage. And one person has to hand a trophy to the other. Sam, What would that look like tomorrow?
So there's a video going around Twitter. Who was the quarterback for Michigan State in like 15? After Kirk Cousins. He played for the Raiders for a minute. What's that guy's name? Help me in the chat. What's his Cook? What's Connor Cook? Yeah. So they win the Big Ten championship, right? And Kevin Warren.
He the trophy. I remember that.
Yeah, Kevin Warren goes ahead of the trophy. It does what it knows. Does what it knows to Kevin Warren. Far be it for me to say copy off of Spartan. But if I'm Jim Harbaugh, JJ would never do it. JJ doesn't have JJ. He just thought that. But Jim, come on, Jim. Jim's got. Hey man, just take the camera. Or and this was a great I think quip from John U. Bacon. He said, "Listen, if it were me, it's like Sam, I know you would do that. If it were you, you would kind of show up in front of the camera." He said, "What I would do is I would say, Tony, I got to thank you for your leadership. You have been such a great leader in the face of a very trying situation. And you made sure to protect the players.
A bastion of leadership.
I mean, good grief. Without you, Tony, the players would have been in grave danger. I mean, it would have been unbelievable what might have happened had you not stepped in." That would be, I think, very fitting for Jim Harbaugh. Now, will it actually work out that way? Probably not. But you'll be right there to capture it, right?
I will be there. I will be on the field, Sam. You'll be in the press box. Listen, Michigan, Iowa, when you think about what that game is going to be, it doesn't necessarily amp you up to the same level as top 10 Penn State, top 10 Ohio State. But think about how special tomorrow could be, Sam. This is the reason the Ohio State game was so special, right? Is because this era of college football is ending, right? Next year, the playoff is expanded. Next year, the Big Ten is completely different. Michigan has a chance to win 3 outright Big Ten titles for the first time ever.
Yeah.
You know how long Michigan's been playing football?
Yeah, man.
144 years.
Yeah.
You've been around for a lot of them. You for a few more than me.
Yeah, it's crazy because, it's hard to have this perspective in the moment, but this might be the golden era. When you consider the run of sustained success and your view of it is clouded by all this crap that we've had to weather through from a fan perspective, watching, and from a coverage perspective. I mean, we were married to our we can't watch the game because we're looking at our phones.
2 phones. He's got 2 phones, one for Twitter, one for phone calls.
Right. Right. I mean, I had that anyway, but even more so because of what was going on. But if you stop and take a breath, I mean, don't take my word for it. Remember the night, well, Vance has already said it was James Hall. James Hall was a 10-year NFL player. He was one of the starters. Think about James Hall. He came into that season, stepped in for David Bowens, who was an outstanding player. And he was on a team where that guy, he sat the bench as an academic casualty, talking about David Bowens, and Michigan still won the championship because James Hall was a pro. Glenn Steele was a pro. Charles Woodson was a pro.
Heard of him, yeah.
Yeah. William Peterson was a pro. Andre Weathers was a pro. You go down the line. Ian Golden and Dahani Jones, they were pros. You go all over the place. Pros everywhere. And James said, this is the best Michigan team in history. He played on a team with Charles Woodson. He played on a team that won the national championship. And he's saying this team is the best in history. Maybe they don't have a Charles Woodson. All right. I love all these players. They have a lot of guys who will be pros, who will be big timers. They don't have a Charles. Maybe JJ. Okay, maybe JJ is their Charles Woodson. We'll see. But the point is, you have a transcendent player on that team. He's one of the best to ever do it. In my opinion, the best college football player I've ever seen. And you got a member of that team saying this one is better because of what they had to overcome. Because they had the adversity that all teams deal with, injury adversity. JJ gets banged up in the game. He doesn't practice. He hardly. So now that Joel said it, I think Joel Klatt said it in the game.
He did on the broadcast.
Yeah, so now Joel Klatt will tell you, JJ hardly practiced leading up to the Maryland game. For all the hand-wringing about what's going on, what's with this play calling, Why is JJ playing this way? The man hardly practiced and went out there and gutted it out for his team, right? So now when you come back the next week and it's like, okay, he's more healthy, but you still got to be judicious with the usage. So they didn't run him at all. He had some improv runs, but you have that adversity that you have to overcome. Your best player, Charles wasn't hurt that season. Your best player hurt the last 2 games of the season, one of which is against Ohio State. And then one of your captains, that 97 team had their captain, Eric Mays, get lost for the season, like Zach Zinner did. But Eric Mays, really good player. Zach Zinner is he's like the guy on the offensive line for them. So that's the adversity that all teams have to deal with at some point, but add to it what we've been talking about. And that is the entire country is basically trying to bring you down. How do you react to that? Do you let it be a distraction? This team hasn't let it be a distraction. They've endured anyway. That's special. That I get why a member of that team would say this team is the best he's ever seen, because the mental fortitude that they've shown is just on a different level.
Special too is back-to-back undefeated seasons, and a chance there is very little margin for error, right? There are a lot of excellent teams, a lot of very good teams in college football. Someone's going to be mad tomorrow night or on Sunday when they are left out of the college football playoff. Michigan cannot afford to lose. A win gets you probably to the Rose Bowl.
And you've never been to the Rose Bowl?
I've never been to the Rose Bowl.
Man.
A lot of Michigan fans haven't been to the Rose Bowl. Listen, it's Iowa, it's Michigan. It's 2 teams that do not play a game with many possessions. I could see this being a very low-scoring, low-possession game. If Iowa wants to make this an Iowa game, I think Michigan's very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
They have the special teams to go toe-to-toe with Iowa, which is a storyline in 21. It's a storyline again this year that they have the special teams talent to do it. How do you see this playing out tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think if Michigan can get a couple shots early, Iowa is not a team that plays from behind. They got to be able to manage the game. They got to be able to stay on schedule. You get them behind a couple scores, and it'll get away from them because they just cannot play that game. So for Michigan, can Michigan get a knockout blow early in this game? If they don't, you're right. I think Michigan can play any style. And if it's a slugfest, Michigan can win a 4th quarter game. But you don't want to. Ideally, you don't want it to be that. You want to handle them like Penn State handled them and get a couple shots. I mean, you think about the game a couple years ago. They ran that count. They were running some of their base run plays, and Iowa was nailing them. They were nailing them. And they hit them with basically some trick play or play action shots. They had the one with Donovan throwing it right.
They had the JJ package where they brought in JJ, and that was the quorum.
Yeah. And then you had the one where they hit them with a wheel off a counter. And in the second half of the game, where Riley Moss, he's cheating inside. Next thing you know, the guy runs right around him, and it's a shot play. They are ripe for that. They are coming into this game saying we got to stop the run, like every team does. There's opportunity there. Will Michigan be able to capitalize on those opportunities early in the game? Because really, this is a game that's about Michigan's offense versus their defense. I mean, the other side is just like, man, can you force them into some mistakes? Can you turn them over, right? Get them playing behind the sticks all game long like Penn State did, because they were exercising futility. I think Borges said, man, you could line them up against one defender and they would take 5 plays to maybe score, right? That's the kind of struggle bus they're on. But defensively, they're for real. Even without Cooper DeJean, take advantage of matchups. You got a great matchup with their backup corner. I like my tight ends in this game on their tight ends or slot, either your tight ends or your slot against their safeties. I think is another matchup to really capitalize on. Play action in those instances, I think, can be ripe for the pickings for Michigan. If they get up early, it'll be a blowout. If it winds up being a 4th quarter game, Michigan still wins. But it's just the kind of thing where you aren't allowed to rest your guys. What you want for Michigan is to be out of the 3rd quarter with your main guys on the bench. And now you're spending the rest of the month healing up J.J. McCarthy, right? Getting your guys with bumps and bruises, getting them all fresh and ready to go for the playoffs and the Rose Bowl. Like you said, you've never seen the Rose Bowl. I've never seen a Rose Bowl victory. I was at the 04 Rose Bowl against SC. I was at the 05 Rose Bowl against Texas. I was at the 07 Rose Bowl against SC. never saw a win. I was not there in 1998 when
the curse of Sam Webb.
Yeah, when
That's what I'm hearing.
when the 97 team went to the Rose Bowl and won it in 98. I was not there. So yearning for the return. It is an iconic setting. If Michigan, let's say they were the 1 seed, they're still choosing the Rose Bowl. They're still choosing the Rose Bowl. So yearning for that, hoping for that, waiting for that. But they got this step first that they got to take. And that's one of the things I'll say in closing about this team. Anyone worried about complacency or overlooking Iowa hasn't been paying attention to this squad. I said it in the post game. They don't skip steps. They just don't. They're together. They're focused. There's a reason why they've been able to overcome all this adversity, and that's because they never ever skip steps.
There are a couple iconic venues in college football. 1A, 1B. It's the Rose Bowl and Lucas Oil Stadium. It's going to be a special. That was a joke, Sam. I hope you laughed at that. That is absolutely, please. That is a joke. It's going to be a fun weekend, and it could be a celebration here tomorrow night. We are looking forward to seeing you guys out and about in Indianapolis. For myself, Alejandro Zuniga, that's Sam Webb. We're going to go watch a Big Ten championship tomorrow.
All right, well, see you tomorrow.